Hey everyone, fellow fixers, welcome back to the Frankie Fix channel, and it is October 27th, only a few days before Halloween. Ooh, it's almost Halloween. So winter's coming. In fact, there's a frost warning this morning. It's freezing outside. But we have this Craftsman Select 26 that Brian Hines has brought to me to just kind of evaluate it and do some maintenance on it. So if you're interested in that kind of thing, we're going to go through, we're going to change the oil, we're going to lubricate the axles for the wheels, we're going to check the augers out, make sure everything's all set on it. Now this is a Craftsman Select 26, so it's 26 inches wide. It's got some pretty nice tires on there. This is not made by Craftsman though. They just, MTD is pretty much who makes it. And they make a lot of them and they just use the name. So Craftsman doesn't make the Snowblower. But I thought I would go through it so that in case you're looking to buy one or you're looking to service yours, you can refer to this video. Because we're going to go through it and look at some of the features of it. Get this thing going because you never know here in Buffalo. You know, it could snow anytime. We got a Bills game coming up in a few hours, so I want to get this thing out of the way. So with all that being said, let's get into it. Alright, so you can see the tag is still here. Two-stage snowblower. It's a 243cc gas engine, self-propelled. We have an electric start, and we do have a steel chute. So at least they're going back to using the steel chutes again, like the old Arians and other snowblowers, instead of the plastic ones. Although plastic ones do have their advantages. They don't rust. But the steel chute is definitely better. So that's nice to see on it. The engine here, you see you have the starter right here. The electric start is here. We're going to test that out as well. Now this is basically a Honda clone Chinese made engine. We'll take a look at the controls here. You've got 6 forward speeds and 2 reverse. You've got your chute control here. That's going to move your angle up and down. What else can we say? We have some lights up front here. You got a light here on the left side and a light there on the right side. That's a nice touch. We are going to check the spark plug out, which is over here. It does have the shovel, which is nice to have to dig out the chute in case it gets clogged. And I think we're going to take this off here too and lubricate inside of here. That's going to be the chute control knob here where you move it left and right. So it's actually moving very smooth, but we're going to go through it anyway and make sure everything's lubed up. So that is the Craftsman Select 26. And also, in case you're wondering, it's model number 31AM6C2FB93. Alright, let's go ahead and check this spark plug out. Take this boot off. Get a look at it. And this is a F6 RTC. That's the type of plug this is, LG. And it looks in good shape. I think all we're going to have to do is clean it. And people say,
Yo, Frankie Fix, you got to replace that spark plug every year. You're not doing a good job.
Well, I can tell you, you don't have to replace it. A lot of people think this is what produces the spark. It's actually a coil inside that produces the spark. The reason you have a spark plug is so this acts as a conduit so the spark can reach the inside of the cylinder to fire the gas. So I think I don't think I've ever in the past 5-6 years replaced a spark plug on any of my equipment. And I have a lot of equipment. But we're going to clean this up and we'll stick it back in there. Take a good look at it. It's not bad. You're going to have a little bit of carbon on it. That's just a byproduct of the firing in the cylinder. But other than that, if this ceramic was cracked, you'd want to replace it. And if this end was damaged at all, you'd want to replace it. But other than that, it looks good. Alright, so there's your plug there, all cleaned up. You can see it's all cleaned up. Now what I like to do is, and I did clean some of the rust off of here, but I'll take something like this. This is a silicone spray, and I'll just spray the spark plug here. Clean it up with it before I put it back in. That way it'll protect it from rusting so quickly. So we'll go ahead and stick that back in there. And let me get my extension. Tighten it down so that looks good. We're all done with that part of it. So let's move on to the next step. Alright, so the next thing we're going to do is take a look at the oil. And here's your oil dipstick right here. And the oil level looks good. But smelling it, it kind of smells like gas. And because I don't know the maintenance history on this, this could be the initial. It is a relatively newer machine. This could be the initial oil that was put in it. And after the break-in period, you should really change it anyway. So we're gonna change that. And it's about 28 ounces of 5W30, and that's what we're gonna use. So I think what I'm going to do now is we're going to turn the machine around and we'll start draining the oil out. So on the rear of the machine there's going to be a 10mm bolt, and you can see this pipe that extends out, which is nice. Some of them have this drain plug on the left or right side of the motor. It makes it a little harder to get to. But we have a 10mm bolt. I have a container here. And I also have a jack stand, and I'm going to rest this part and I'm tip it back onto this jack stand here, and we're going to drain the oil. Now I did take it out and start it first. You should do that so that the oil's warmer. It's going to flow out a lot easier. So let's get to taking that bolt off and get this oil drained. Okay, oil is all done draining, so we're going to go ahead and put the bolt back in here. tighten it down. You don't want to go too tight, just snug. And we're going to move this out of the way and just wipe that down there. Now I'm not going to fill it up yet because I have to put this in the service position, which I'm going to have to tip it on its bucket. So it's better that I just don't put the oil in right now. There's no reason for it. We're going to go through the other things first, and then we'll fill up the oil a little bit later. Alright, before we do that, we might as well just check the belts. And you're going to have a bolt on the right side. You got this plastic cover, and you got a bolt on the left. It's a 3/8. I've already removed the other side, so we're going to go ahead and take this one out. And the cover should come out fairly easy. Always keep the bolts with it. And we'll just get a look in there. And what we're looking for is any cracks in the belt. We got two belts here. This front one here is going to power the augers. It's going to be loose like this because you have this tensioner. So when you hit the knob on the control panel there, it's going to create this tension. And it's going to engage the augers. And then this one in the back here is for the wheels. And they look good. Not bad. There is a spring, a tension spring. We're going to go ahead and spray. We'll do that after we get it in the service position and put the oil in. That'll be the last step. We'll go around and spray these springs with some silicone. There's a little bit of rust forming on them. But that's it for that. The belts look good. Alright, now there's a couple ways you can do this. Because when you tip this on the service position, you could have these caps are vented. And what will happen is gas will start leaking out. So you can either drain the gas, or you can use this little trick. Now this piece here goes in the tank. I already took it out. And this part pops into the center of the cap. Of course, you can't put the plastic bag on with this, so it's okay to just pull that out of there, set it aside. And then we'll put the plastic bag here. And then just tighten the cap down. Just like that. Alright, well, we got it in the service position. We're going to take this belly pan off here. It's a 3/8, and we're going to inspect the drive system and lubricate it. So I'm going to go ahead and remove. We got 1, 2, 3, 4 is what it looks like here. Now what is nice about these machines is you have adjustments on top here for the cables. You can move these up and down. So if you have a little bit too much slack there, you can adjust these brackets that will create more tension. Start at the top, pull it out, and you're always going to see some debris in there. We're going to clean this up, but this is basically from the friction disc here. And looking at it, it still has a good amount of rubber on it. and we're going to clean this plate, because what happens is this plate turns, and when you engage the handle, this rubber disc comes in contact with this plate, and depending on the position of it, you know, if it's more towards the center or outside, you're going to get the different speeds. So we're going to clean this up, clean all this debris out of here, and we're going to lubricate. We're going to lubricate, but we're not going to get too crazy, because you don't want to get that any kind of grease or lubrication on this disc here, because what's going to happen is the wheels are going to slip. So it's moving pretty good right now, but we're just going to, and there isn't really many components in here. You've got the axle, you've got a large gear here, you've got a kind of an octagonal shaped shaft here where the friction disc attaches to, and there's really not much to it there. But what I'm going to do is lay a cloth over this friction disc, and then I'll start to lubricate the inside. What's important too is because when you hit the handle, this moves back and forth, so you have to make sure that octagonal shaped shaft there is lubricated good. And I can use some white lithium there. If you have a low temp grease, that's good. We're just going to rub this all along there. Don't get too crazy. You don't want it, like I said, when you start powering it and the wheels start turning, you don't want it to fly off. You know, you don't want that grease flying off. And as far as this gear, you don't have to get crazy there either, because as it turns, it's going to distribute the grease. So you don't have to, you know, put 2 inches of grease. Just kind of place the grease every inch or two. And then we'll go ahead and turn it. As you can see how the grease, I only put it every 1 or 2 inches. It's distributing as I'm turning it. Then I'm going to go up to the handle and I'm going to change the gear, and you should see that going back and forth. Okay, that looks good to me. Now if you did get some grease or anything on this friction disc here, it's okay to take some brakes part cleaner and a rag and just wipe it off. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to clean this disc, the rubber on here, and I'm also going to clean that. I'm not going to get crazy with it and soak it, but I'm going to apply it to the rag, wipe around, and it should clean off this residual the rubber marks that are on this disc here. I'm just going to hold this paper towel and turn it and let that rubber wheel spin on it. I will apply a little bit of silicone to these springs in here. Again, not getting too crazy. We're just trying to prevent any corrosion or rust. I think we're in good shape there. So I'm going to clean up this pan. We're going to put the pan back on and we can continue. Go on first. Just like that. Nice one. All right, so since we have it up in the service position, another issue that can happen, and it happens often, I've dealt with it several times, is if you don't lubricate these shafts with these wheels on them, it'll seize up. And if you have to service the tire or anything, it's just not going to come off. And you don't want that kind of nightmare. So this is a 1/2 inch. Now this works a little bit different than the Ariens models. It has a bolt on the end, whereas others would have a pin and a hole, and you would pull the pin out. So we're just going to remove this bolt here. I'm going to do the same thing with both sides. So remove the bolt. And we can go ahead and wipe the shaft off here. There's a spacer. And then we'll just go ahead and put some, I'm just going to use white lithium grease. I'm not going to get crazy with it, but we're going to grease this up here. Just like that. We'll put our wheel back on. We'll turn it. That should do it. Put our bolt back in. So guys, tell me, do you have this model snowblower? And what do you think about its performance? Alright, so that's that one. Just make sure it's snug. And we're going to move over to the other side. No need to bore you with that. I'm going to do the same exact thing. So we've put the machine back in its normal position. We can remove the plastic bag from the gas tank and make sure you snap in this little insert here in the center. Snaps right in there. You can remove the bag, insert the circular portion into the tank, It's probably just so you don't lose the cap. Kind of like your car. And then we'll put this back in. So now we're going to focus on filling the oil up. So it's going to take 28 ounces, 5W30. So let me prepare that and funnel, and we can get going on that. All right, so I like using this. This is just a cheap dollar store cup, but it has the ounces on it. So I'm going to start with 12, and I'll put in another 12. That'll be 24. And then I'll check the stick, and I'll top it off from there. So I'm just going to go ahead and put my oil in. Now I'm going to put another 12 in this cup. Now I'm going to let this sit, take a break, and give it time to settle into the crankcase. And I'll take a measurement. And like I said, I'm just going to put in a few more ounces and we'll be all done with it. All right, so we've topped it off. Let's go ahead and check the level. That's right where it needs to be. Crystal clear. You want it in between these X's here, not above it. You don't want to overfill it. So that's nice and clean. Smells good. No more gas smell. So now our next step is we're going to look at the bucket area. And I've noticed something with the skid shoes we're going to have to adjust. So we're going to get to that now. Alright, so I'm looking at the scraper bar down here, and some people think that a scraper bar is supposed to scrape against the ground, but it actually isn't. That's what the shoes are for on each side here. And there should be space, and if you have gravel driveway, you'd raise it up a bit higher. You know, you might want to raise it up a 1/4 of an inch or something like that, but you can go 1/8 of an inch. You could take some paint sticks and put one on each side, and then loosen the bolts for the skid shoes, drop them down, and that's what we're going to have to do here. So let me get something to put underneath that scraper bar, and we're going to raise it up, because what's going to happen is it's going to wear down this bucket and it's going to destroy that scraper blade. You want a little bit of space there between the scraper blade and the ground. So this is a level surface. So let me go get something. We'll place it underneath. We'll take these carriage bolts, loosen them, and we'll drop down those skid shoes. Okay, so here I'm just using a piece of subfloor, and I'll slide it underneath here. As close to the center as possible. And now we're going to loosen those bolts up. All right, we're going to take a 1/2 inch socket. Just loosen them enough to drop that skid shoe down. Just like that. And then just tighten it back up. Just making sure it's level. Don't want to over tighten them, but nice and snug. So now we're going to take care of the other side, and that'll take care of the clearance. Okay, so I put a light behind it so you can kind of see the clearance underneath. So that's good there. So the next thing we're going to do is just look at the augers. We'll lubricate them a little bit. Now these are separate pieces of the auger. There's 4 different sections. There are no zerks. Zerks are what you can put an oiler or a grease gun in and put the grease in. But what you can do with this is there's different sections. So you can just go ahead section by section and spray some lubrication in there. Basically, it's just to prevent the augers from seizing to that shaft, because they're always connected to the shaft with the shear pins. So when the shaft spins, those spin. So you can use any kind of grease there. It's just to prevent seizing. Because you ever have to service this, you can't get the augers off. That's a tough situation. So I'm going to do that. And I did notice there's one shear pin missing, and I'll show you that. Right there. So this specific model takes 1, 2, 3, 4. Basically, there's a shear pin for each section of the auger. So we're going to get a shear pin for that, and then we're going to fire it up. We'll test out the drive mechanism. We'll finish oiling and spraying and lubricating, and that'll be it for it. Alright, so a good way to do these is, now this doesn't have, I like actually the shear pins that have the bolts, the nylock nuts on them. That could be what happened here. Maybe the clip fell off, or just maybe they hit something and it sheared off. But you can take each pin out, go along and take each pin and spray some lube inside of the hole where the shear pin goes, and kind of spin it around, work it in there. You can use a grease in there. You know, if you had a grease gun, you could take it and put the grease in here. I'm just using this silicone stuff. This works pretty well. You know, I do my servicing every year, so it's in a year's time, it's not going to seize up. You know, it's when you let it sit for a long time. And so I'm going to go ahead and put this pin back in. We'll put our little clip on it. And that's it. So I'm going to go along and do the rest of them, and we'll be done with that part of it. Alright, so as an added note, if you had a grease gun like this and you had Zerks, you would go to each one and pump some grease into it, and you'll eventually see the grease coming out, probably where the shear pins go in. So you'll see it at various points coming out, but this is a good thing to have right here. Alright, so the only other issue is with these gearboxes on these MTDs, on most of them, it'll be like Cub Cadet and other MTD machines, there's actually no fill or drain plug on these gearboxes, and it could be very expensive if there's no grease or oil. Now, it could have grease or oil, and how you do it is they put this little plastic plug on top here, and you can take a pick tool, or I just took my fingers and kind of pulled it up, and you can either take like a twist tie or take a Q-tip and cut off the you know, the Q-tip part of it, so you can kind of use it as a dipstick. And I did do that, and it is fine, but it could either have oil in it or it could have grease in it. It really depends, but that's looking good. It's kind of disappointing, you know, on a Arians or something like that, you're not going to see something like this. You're going to, or a Toro, on the really good gearboxes, you're going to see a fill plug and a drain plug. So we're all set to go here. So let's fire this thing up. All right, so let's start her up, and why not try the electric start while we're at it? So that's what we're going to do. Alright guys, so you heard that, it's surging. And it should run full, choke open without surging. So there's an issue with the carburetor, we're going to have to clean it. We've got 2 bolts here on the side. Then we have 1 bolt over here on this side. We have to remove this first. And there's a slot up here, so you don't have to pull out this knob here. We take out those 3, and there might be one on the bottom. I'll check that out. And then this cover should come off. We can get a look at the carburetor, see what's going on there. Alright, so I'd be derelict in my duty if I didn't fix this. So I did end up taking this knob off just to make it easier to get, you know, I didn't want to break that knob. Because I'm going to have to clamp, there is no shut off here. So I'm going to have to clamp this line, and I have a can here. So then we're going to remove these 2 bolts, which is going to be 10 millimeter. So what I'm going to do is just get a piece of paper towel here. And just kind of wrap it around the line because I don't want to pinch it. Now if you have fuel line clamp, well that's great. But if you don't, this is another way you can do it. I'm basically just going to take this, take a pair of vice grips. I got needle nose. I don't want to use the vice grips directly because they're a little aggressive. And I'm going to clamp down. I'm going to clamp down with the vice grips just like that. I got my can ready. I'm going to go ahead and take this fuel clamp. I know it's probably hard to see. And I'm going to remove and slide that clamp up. Usually what I like to do with fuel hoses is turn them first. You know, instead of pulling up on it, giving it a good turn first. And then we'll have to pry that off of there. There will be a little bit of gas leaking out, but we have a can below it. There we go. Wasn't too bad. Couple drips. So we got our fuel line off. So let's go ahead and take our 10 millimeter and remove these 2 bolts here. One on the right, one on the left. Once we do that, there's going to be some linkages that we're going to have to take off of there for the governor. Get a look in here. So we have a breather hose hooked up too, coming from the overhead valve cover. So we can lift this out. You're going to see this big huge choke knob there. So we lift that out. Here's a gasket and some spacers. Some metal spacers, don't want to lose them, so we'll set them right just as it is, as it goes in there. And now, once you pull this out, this governor linkage should lift right out. So we got that, and now we just need to remove the governor spring. And just kind of set it aside there. I know it's hard to see because I have this in the way. But you have the governor linkage, which is a rod and a spring. And then what I'm going to do is go ahead and take this primer line off of the carburetor and just leave this sitting here. So as I'm taking it out, I'm going to kind of hold it over this can and tip it because there's going to be gas in here. And there you have it. So we have it out. So let's take a look at what's going on. We'll remove the ball and clean it up. All right, let's get this ball off and take a look at what's going on in here. So we got a 10 millimeter. We still got some gas coming out. That's expected. Oh, it's going to be difficult. Now on these, they do have a bolt here, and that's actually for at the end of the season. You get to see that bolt right there. You can drain the gas out of it. Come on. All nut. I do see some, it's going to be hard to show you that. Let me see. There's some gunk in here. So we got to clean that out. Gasket looks good. Here we have our float. So what we're going to do is get a screwdriver and we're going to take this main jet out of here. We got to take it out of here. Get a look at it. So we're going to take this jet out. There should be an emulsion tube in there. There's our emulsion tube. You can see them right here. This is the emulsion tube. And what we're going to do, I'm going to do a couple things, but I'm going to take, I have a piece of wire here. And I want to go through each one of these holes. And just poke it through. And make sure they're all clear. There's a bunch of them in a row. I'm going to stick it down the center. Go through each one of these holes. Just like that. Make sure they're all clear. So we got that. We're gonna poke through there, clean that out. And we've got to go spray the carb cleaner in here. I think what I'm going to do too is take my compressor and I'm going to blow this out as well. we have a tiny little area right here, and we're going to poke that through as well. Basically anywhere that you see typically you're going to see a brass fitting, some kind of brass fitting, you want to clean that out. And so we'll go ahead and spray in here. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to, so I don't mess up my camera here, I'm going to take this outside and continue spraying this out. And we're going to spray, again, we're going to spray the emulsion tube here. And also we're going to spray the holes again. And then we'll go with the air compressor and blow it out. So once I'm done with that, I'll be right back. All right, so we cleaned it all up. Let's piece it back together, shall we? So we have the emulsion tube, and that's going to go in with this tip. You can see the tip with the kind of like the edge on it. The top has this large hole on the top here. So it's going to go in just like that. Should drop down in there. Then we have this other jet here. And we get the long screwdriver. You don't want to force it. Just get it in there snug. You don't want to cross thread that either. That's about right. Bowl looks good, and the float looks good. You can test it by blowing in here, and then with the float up you should get some air in there. So let me try that. Yeah, it's working good. So when the bowl's down, you shouldn't be able to blow any air through there. So we got that all in there. So now we've got the bowl gasket. Then of course the bowl. And let's see, this is going to be this way, so we probably want this bolt facing out so the fuel can be drained at the end of the winter. So that looks good there. So we'll put our bowl nut in there. We'll go ahead and tighten it down. Don't gotta get too crazy here, just snug. If it needs additional tightening, it's probably easier to do when it's on the machine, but so that looks good. I think we're ready to reinstall it. Alright, so we're gonna have to we got a breather hose here, right here. We have a governor linkage and a spring. So let's go ahead and slide this on here. And as you're sliding it in, you should be able to get at the right angle to get this. There's a slot on top of this throttle, and then I can proceed to push it back. And now I have this spring, and I'll have to kind of bend it upward, put that in, so that's in there. And we can work it just to make sure it's working properly. And we have a gasket with these metal spacers, and that's basically because we have to put this plastic on. So when you tighten this down, this basically prevents the plastic from crushing. And so there's a hole there, and you can see the gasket fits perfectly on there. Now this is going to slip over, and there's a breather hose connection on the back. Make sure the breather hose is in there all the way. So that's what we end up with. So then we take our two 10mm nuts here. Get them put on there. There is a primer hose that I may have missed there. I'm going to have to take this off again. Alright, so I noticed here, I don't know why they make these things so cheap, but coming out of the carburetor for the primer bulb was a plastic. It isn't metal like this one here for the gas line. It's plastic and probably made to break or whatever. But when I took this hose off, and I did it very gently, there's a small piece. It kind of comes out and angles up. It's just all plastic. And that is broken there. So, I'm going to have to tell them about that. But I did get it to function here by putting it on, and it does work, with a clamp coming in this way. Now, I'm not going to know if that's going to work yet until I put this cover back on because of the angle. You know, if I put this cover back on and this hose is kinked, then the primer's not going to work. So I got to make sure that works. And I'll have to just let them know that if there's an issue in the future, just bring it back to me. Otherwise, you'd have to get a whole new carburetor here. And it's functional, so, and that clamp will help keep it on. It's a very small clamp, hose clamp. So I'm going to continue to piece this back together, and then and just make sure it's functional. Alright guys, so another issue we had after I had putting everything back together, it's running great, is there was no reverse. In fact, these were all forward speeds, so if you put it in forward 1, it was super fast. But if you have that issue on an MTD type snowblower, it has this right here. It's this adjustment here. So this was actually down here. So all I did was took a 7/16 wrench, loosened it up, and moved this this way and tightened it down here. So I'm not sure who made the adjustment before, but it was totally wrong. So now the reverse gears work. So if you run into that problem, that's your adjustment there. But I appreciate you guys watching. If you're interested in this kind of content, like and subscribe. I could use the support on the channel. I hope you all have a great day and a great Halloween. And get those snowblowers ready. And we'll see you next time.